Hi, good morning, Sangha. Thank you for having me. My name is Sean, and I'm just a layperson who is lucky enough to share a few observations and thoughts today. So thank you for having me. Um, Today, I would like to share a few of my thoughts and observations about meditation, and the value that it's had in my life, and hopefully some of it might resonate with you as well. Thich Nhat Hanh said that meditation can help us embrace our worries, our fear, our anger, and that is very healing. Uh, and while I recognize that there are many types of meditation, all of which are beneficial. The one that I want to focus on today is Zazen, sitting just to sit. A common way that the exercise is described is to sit and watch our thoughts just as clouds passing by. Watch them without judgment, uh, watch them without attaching ourselves to the thought cloud itself, and just letting them pass by. Um, well, that's a beautiful way of thinking about it, a way that makes it an analogy that makes it a little bit more personable and relatable to me is in a former life. Well, actually, not literally. In just before in this life, not literally in a former life, but Buddhist puns. Earlier in this life, I was a avid fly fisherman, um, and uh, and the way that I like to analogize meditation, zazen, is imagine myself as a fish resting at the bottom of a stream. And instead of watching clouds go by, I'm watching fishing lures go by on the surface of the water. I'm just watching them go by. But sometimes there's a really enticing looking fishing lure. So I'll swim up from the bottom of the stream and I'll follow the lure. I'll look at it. And if it catches my attention even more, I'll even take a bite out of it. And before I know it, uh, I'm getting yanked left, I'm getting yanked right, I'm getting pulled up out of the water. And all of a sudden, I've just lost control of my train of thought and my ability to guide my own thought processes. And the exercise is just to simply let go of the hook. Let go of the hook, settle down in the bottom of the stream, and continue to watch the lures go by. Um, and you know, in a lot of ways, I in my early history of meditating, maybe like many of you, I used to get discouraged when I was counting my breath, right? And I could only get to three, I could only get to four without being interrupted by a thought. And I understand, you know, don't judge it, just let it pass. But there was a small part of me that, you know, felt discouraged and felt like, oh, why didn't I get to five? Why could I only get to four in counting my breath? But just last week, during my meditation with the Sangha at 6 a.m., um, I realized that the practice of letting go of the hook is the point. Um, to have a thought and to let it go. In the gym, I'm trying to go to the gym as often as I can now help regulate my blood sugar for my diabetes. And in the gym, this would be, you could think of this as like a rep or a repetition. Have a thought, let it go. Have a thought, let it go. Here and now, have a thought, let it go. And this this exercise of observing our thoughts and letting them go, I believe over time and over practice has the ability to build mental strength and resiliency that has proven very beneficial in my personal life when I'm not meditating off the cushion, right? When we're all just living our daily lives. If it's okay with the Sangha, I'd like to share a personal example of this this strength that has been built up through meditation and how it's benefited me in my daily life, in my lay life. Um, about a week and a half ago, uh, my wife and I and our toddler were just hanging out in the living room, and my wife said something to me that was, you know, not like not like a really heavy thing, but she was annoyed at me, and she kind of said something to me out of that annoyance, and that initiated a really interesting chain reaction. Um, Basically, I just started to have really dark, downward spiraling thought processes that felt out of control. Um, I was like, my physical body like shut down, and I would just probably from the exterior looked like a zombie. Um, and my thoughts were just doing this downward, steep and fast. Uh, and I was doing stuff in the kitchen, and I went to go wash my hands. And right when my hands hit the cold water, there was this moment. It was actually an instant where I became the observer. Uh, I I took on this perspective of, oh, Sean, wow, you're having some really dark, downward spiraling, out of control thoughts. That is intense. That is a lot. And that shift from being in the movie to being the person watching the movie was a great moment of clarity for me. One, because I didn't feel so heavy anymore. It was like it was a recognition and an observation of that was happening to Sean, but I was no longer feeling the full weight of that anymore. And the observation of that thought process and of that downward spiral made me realize, hey Sean, what Emma said to you wasn't all that like uh, heavy, or wasn't it wasn't anything that should have warranted such a disproportionate reaction from you. She just said one sentence, and here you are 25 minutes later, like just in this deep, dark place. There seems to be an imbalance there. Why might that imbalance be? And I thought about it. Observer Sean thought about it, and I came to the realization that it most likely is some sort of trauma response that I had from when I was a little kid. Um, that's a whole nother, maybe Dharma talk or conversation. So we won't go there. But the recognition and the insight that that I didn't have to feel that way completely then uh, was was very dramatic. It was it was an instant where I was able to observe my thoughts just as we do in meditation. And that just observation and shift to the observer allowed me to have uh, a lighter heart and a clearer mind. Um, and so from there, I was able to approach Emma calmly and not so emotionally invested. And we were able to talk about it and come to a peaceful resolution between us and identify ways in which I can help her in the future when things like that happen, and when things like that happen, how things she can do to help me. We came upon a peaceful resolution, and I really do attribute that to this instant shift I had of becoming the observer, of not being in the movie, but becoming just the person who watches the movie. And because our minds, they're a magnificent and interesting thing. I think that our mind is both a time machine and a teleportation machine. What I mean by that is our minds have the ability to go into the past, to go into the future. Our minds have the ability to think about things that are happening where we come from, are happening of things where our family is, are happening, things that are happening of where people are, or we have worries that are in other places, um, except here and now. And in meditation, our teachers here and throughout the greater Sangha encourage us to focus on our breath, because our breath is not a time machine, is not a teleportation machine. Our breath can only be here, and our breath can only be now. Um, and and I feel like this example of how I've been able to apply it to my life outside of meditation is so valuable, because in science it's said that the average person has between 10 and 30,000 thoughts a day. So on average, we have 20,000 thoughts a day. I think this exercise of observing our thoughts, we can begin to know thyself. What does Sean think about? In his 20,000 thoughts a day, how many of those thoughts are derived from anger, ignorance, and desire, hence increasing the likelihood of suffering? How many of Sean's thoughts are just kind of neutral in nature? And how many of Sean's thoughts are derived from a place of kindness and compassion and understanding, thereby increasing the likelihood of reducing suffering? Um, left to my own mindlessness, uh, by observing my thoughts, if I were left to my own mindlessness, I've learned that autopilot Sean is very judgmental. Uh, Left to my own devices, I could judge a twig, you know. Um, but that's who I was. A lot of my 20,000 thoughts a day were that of judgment. And it was only by this exercise of observing my thoughts and becoming the observer that I was able to learn that about myself and to know myself. Um, and and I feel like yeah, this concept has been so valuable for me. Um, I think that I'll draw from a quote from that I saw at the temple. There is what we think we become. You know, and once we're able to observe our thoughts, we might be able to employ some action. And what I mean by that is once we see our thoughts just as they are, we can choose, oh, which thoughts do we want to let just pass by? Thoughts of suffering, anger, ignorance, and desire. And what thoughts do we want to look at more? Um, thoughts of compassion. And if we focus on those thoughts will inspire other thoughts of compassion. And if we collect enough compassionate thoughts, those collectively might inspire compassionate speech. And if we practice compassionate speech enough, collectively, that might generate compassionate action, which are the three ways in which we can generate our karma is by thinking thoughts, speaking words, and taking action. Uh, and so it is, yeah, it's the value of meditation that's allowed me to apply these practices and develop that muscle, not just in on the cushion, but in daily life. And yeah, thanks for your time. I'll end with again what we think we become. Thank you, Sangha.